Hi. The EcoChat Tea Club brings you singular batches of select teas each month, along with their stories about what makes them special. Batch number 52 of the EcoChat Tea Club is a traditional Lugu Oolong tea that we sourced from our friend who we've gotten to know locally. And we sourced our first batch of tea from him last winter and shared it with the EcoChat Tea Club. And we're inspired to do the same with this year's winter harvest. This year's winter harvest is slightly more roasted than last year, at least in its time. He roasted it 3 times over a couple of months and probably at least 8-hour sessions each time, so around 25 hours of roasting, and finally reached the qualities that he was looking for. This winter's batch was a little more stubborn in getting it to where he wanted it to be. I'm going with our standard ratio of 1 to 15, about 9 grams of tea leaves for a teapot that's about 145 milliliters capacity, boiling temperature, and we'll brew for roughly 1-minute intervals after waking up the leaves and warming up our teaware. So we simply like this farmer in his roots, character, and his farming and tea making practices and overall setup. He planted his own plot of tea over 20 years ago when he was in his 20s and learned the trade throughout his whole life, really. His father grew tea on their family homesteaded land where he grew up, and then he cleared a plot of land that is owned by his uncle on virgin bamboo forest land, basically. It hadn't been farmed before. And he's been practicing relatively sustainable farming methods in that he doesn't feed his tea plants a whole lot of fertilizer. He lets them get what they need from the soil, and he administers the least amount of pesticides possible in order to keep his crop healthy. If they are not used, it definitely compromises not only the yield, but often the quality, at least the consistency of quality, if the pests aren't kept away in the early part of the growing season. So we feel that this is a respectable farming practice, and it also makes good tea. Everything about his setup, from the farm to his home factory, which is the most minimal arrangement we know of in terms of the equipment used and just the overall layout of his factory. It's basically open air. He has no air conditioning, so there's no climate control, no indoor withering based on a certain percentage of humidity or temperature. He has to roll with what the weather is on the day of his harvest. And that's definitely a significant aspect of traditionally made tea. And it's why the whole character of traditional tea, traditional oolong, particularly in the Lugu area, has become what it is. They learned before modern times, they learned to work with their leaves to produce the best quality they could given the overall circumstances. And we picked this name, traditional Lugu Oolong tea, and didn't call it dongding because we wanted to make it more specifically a local specialty. Dongding is more widely used these days. It's become a name to designate a processing method, namely significant oxidation and significant post-production roasting. The tea leaves can come from anywhere, virtually, and it's slightly modernized, to put it simply. And when we find an individual farmer who's doing his own thing, managing his own farm, doing almost all the processing himself with the help of his family and relatives, that gets the name traditional oolong tea in our book. I brewed this a little bit lightly. It wins. It just wins. It's fruity, it's nutty, it's woody, it's got very subtle roasted character to it. It's not telling you, obviously, it has been roasted, but these flavors come from the effect of roasting. So that's part of the mastery as well. It's very tactfully and carefully roasted with finesse and know-how. The aroma off the leaves gives a little bit more of a roasted character to it, but also balanced with sweet, fruity notes. Like fire roasted yams or a little bit of pumpkin pie, something that's been baked or roasted that has a good amount of sweetness and richness to it. It's dense. It's got, and the aroma is just rich and thick and very enticing. That's third brew in the pot here. We'll pour out a cup of the second brew and pour off the excess so that we can taste each brew separately. Candied yams, butternut squash. It's just been exposed to that heat, bringing out the qualities within the leaf, transforming them into a sweeter constitution. One of the things we encourage you to do is, of course, taste the tea while it's hot and you're brewing it, but let it cool down. I chose a glass this time because I wanted to see the color of, so I'll pour off the excess of each individual brew into a separate mug or cup or whatever, and let it cool down. And or even if you just keep it in a larger pitcher, there's a lot more to explore from what you taste when the tea is hot to what you taste after it's cooled down close to room temperature or fully at room temperature. It's just more to enjoy, basically, and more to learn about what this tea or any batch of tea offers. Second brew has cooled off in this square pitcher that I'm using today significantly, I get more of a sense of the smoothness, the consistency, the texture. It has a nice thick texture to it, nice mouthfeel. Basically, the hotter the tea, the more volatile everything is. And it's more difficult for our palate to sense what's going on. I think when it's hot, we get more aromatics, but we don't get as much of the body or the palate as when it cools down. The color is really pretty. It's a deep amber, golden orange hue. More woodsiness, yeah. The more I brew it, the more the kind of woodsy campfire character comes out. Enough sweetness still there, but the roast is becoming more obvious. This is the third brew here. Please do leave your comments in the comment section below. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you stay posted on all our news, and like this video as well. Share it with your friends who might enjoy watching it as well. Batch number 52, traditional Lugu Oolong, winter 2019 harvest. We're really happy to be able to share this with you. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you next time.